Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun adjusted the collar of her uniform as she approached the imposing steel gates of Fort Meade. The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete barriers, and the guard's eyes followed her every movement with practiced suspicion. She had been stationed here for 3 months, but today felt different. Today, she carried secrets that could either save lives or destroy her own. Sarah's official role was Assistant Director of Intelligence Analysis, a position that granted her access to classified communications between military bases worldwide. What the Pentagon didn't know was that she had been documenting irregularities in weapons shipments and personnel transfers for the past 8 weeks. Someone was using military resources to fund illegal operations, and the evidence pointed to corruption at the highest levels. The security checkpoint buzzed as she scanned her identification card. The guard, Sergeant Martinez, nodded respectfully. "Morning, Commander Chun. Early start today. Always something urgent in intelligence," Sarah replied with a practiced smile, though her heart raced beneath her calm exterior. In her briefcase lay encrypted files containing shipping manifests, communication intercepts, and financial records that revealed a pattern of systematic theft and cover-ups spanning multiple bases across 3 continents. Her father, Admiral David Morrison, had taught her that integrity was non-negotiable in military service. He served as Director of Naval Operations at the Pentagon, a position that made him one of the most powerful men in the military hierarchy. Sarah had considered bringing her concerns to him directly, but the evidence suggested that whoever was behind these operations had infiltrated the highest levels of command. She couldn't risk compromising her father's position or safety until she had irrefutable proof. As Sarah walked through the corridors of the intelligence building, she noticed unusual activity. Personnel she didn't recognize moved through areas typically restricted to senior analysts. Their movements seemed coordinated, purposeful, and they avoided making eye contact with regular staff members. Something was happening, and it wasn't part of any operation she had been briefed on. Her office was located on the 3rd floor, overlooking the main courtyard. The space was modest but functional, with 2 computer terminals, filing cabinets secured with biometric locks, and a secure phone line for classified communications. Sarah had spent countless hours in this room, analyzing data streams and preparing intelligence reports. Today, however, she planned to do something that would either expose the truth or end her career. She activated her computer terminal and began accessing files related to Operation Nightfall, a classified weapons redistribution program that officially didn't exist. According to the documentation, military equipment worth millions of dollars was being transferred between bases under the guise of routine maintenance and upgrades. However, Sarah's investigation revealed that much of this equipment was disappearing entirely, with falsified records covering the thefts. The conspiracy was sophisticated and well-organized. Whoever orchestrated it had access to high-level authorization codes, military transportation networks, and the ability to alter official records without detection. They had been operating for at least 2 years, possibly longer, and their activities extended far beyond simple theft. Some evidence suggested they were selling advanced military technology to foreign buyers, while other documents indicated involvement in arms trafficking to unauthorized groups. Sarah's phone vibrated with an encrypted message from her contact at the Defense Intelligence Agency. Agent Rebecca Walsh had been helping her gather information from outside military channels. The message was brief but alarming. Pattern confirmed. 3 more bases compromised. They know someone is investigating. Be careful. The warning sent a chill down Sarah's spine. If the conspirators suspected they were being investigated, everyone involved in the inquiry was in danger. She quickly copied the most critical files to an encrypted drive, ensuring she had backup evidence even if her access to military systems was compromised. As she worked, Sarah heard footsteps in the corridor outside her office. The sound was deliberate, measured, and stopped directly outside her door. She minimized her computer screen and pretended to review routine intelligence reports as someone knocked. "Come in," she called, maintaining her professional composure. The door opened to reveal Colonel James Reeves, the base intelligence director and her immediate superior. Reeves was a career military officer with an impeccable record, but Sarah had recently discovered his name appeared on several suspicious transfer orders related to Operation Nightfall. His presence in her office at this moment couldn't be a coincidence. "Commander Chun, I need to discuss some irregularities in your recent work assignments," Reeves said, closing the door behind him. His tone was casual, but Sarah noticed tension in his posture and the way his hand rested near his sidearm. "Of course, Colonel. What kind of irregularities?" Sarah responded, her training helping her maintain a calm exterior while her mind raced through possible escape strategies. "It seems you've been accessing files outside your normal area of responsibility. The system logs show extensive queries related to logistics and supply operations. That's not typically within the scope of communications intelligence." Reeves moved closer to her desk, his eyes scanning the papers and computer screens. Sarah knew this conversation could determine whether she lived or died. If Reeves was part of the conspiracy, admitting to her investigation would be tantamount to signing her death warrant. If he wasn't involved, he might be the ally she desperately needed. The decision required split-second judgment based on instincts honed through years of intelligence work. "I've been conducting a cross-reference analysis for Admiral Patterson's office," she lied smoothly. "There were concerns about communication delays affecting supply chain coordination. I was asked to look for patterns that might explain the inefficiencies." Reeves studied her face, searching for signs of deception. The silence stretched for several seconds before he spoke again. "Admiral Patterson didn't mention any such analysis to me. Perhaps we should contact his office to clarify the authorization." Sarah's heart sank. Either Reeves was testing her story, or he was already aware that Admiral Patterson was currently deployed overseas and unreachable for verification. Both possibilities suggested she was trapped. "Actually, Colonel, the request came through informal channels. Admiral Patterson was concerned about operational security and wanted the investigation conducted discreetly," she improvised, buying time while calculating her options. "I see." Reeves pulled out his phone and began typing a message. "I'll need to verify this with higher command. In the meantime, I'm suspending your access to classified systems pending investigation." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Loss of access would prevent her from gathering additional evidence and leave her vulnerable to retaliation from the conspirators. More importantly, it meant they had likely discovered her activities and were moving to neutralize the threat she represented. "Colonel, I understand your concerns, but this investigation is time-sensitive. If there are operational security issues affecting our supply lines, delaying the analysis could compromise mission effectiveness," Sarah argued, hoping to appeal to his sense of duty. "Commander, you're dismissed for the day. Report to my office tomorrow morning at 0800 for a full briefing on your activities." "That's an order." Reeves's tone left no room for argument. Sarah gathered her personal items, ensuring the encrypted drive remained hidden in her jacket pocket. As she prepared to leave, she noticed Reeves watching her every movement with unusual intensity. The man she had worked with for months suddenly seemed like a stranger, and she realized how little she truly knew about the people around her. Walking through the corridors toward the exit, Sarah felt eyes tracking her progress. Personnel who normally greeted her with friendly nods now avoided eye contact or watched her with suspicious expressions. Word of her suspension had apparently spread quickly, or perhaps instructions had been issued regarding her treatment. Outside the building, Sarah paused to collect her thoughts. She had perhaps 12 hours before her meeting with Reeves, which meant 12 hours to decide her next move. The evidence she possessed was explosive but incomplete. Without access to military systems, gathering additional proof would be nearly impossible. However, the alternative was accepting the cover-up and allowing the conspiracy to continue. Her phone buzzed with another encrypted message from Agent Walsh. Situation deteriorating. 3 analysts from different bases reported missing in past week. All were investigating similar irregularities. Recommend immediate extraction. The message confirmed Sarah's worst fears. She wasn't the only person investigating the conspiracy, and others had already been silenced. The organization behind these crimes possessed the resources and ruthlessness necessary to eliminate threats anywhere in the world. Sarah walked to her car, a modest sedan that blended easily into traffic. As she drove away from the base, she noticed a black SUV following at a discreet distance. The surveillance was professional, but detectable to someone with her training. They wanted her to know she was being watched, hoping the pressure would force her to make mistakes or abandon her investigation. Instead of driving home, Sarah headed toward downtown Baltimore. If she was being followed, she needed to lose her tail before contacting her father or Agent Walsh. The city's dense traffic and multiple escape routes would provide opportunities to evade surveillance, but only if she acted quickly and decisively. 20 minutes later, after a series of seemingly random turns and stops, Sarah confirmed she had lost her followers. She parked in a crowded shopping mall and used a payphone to contact her father's secure line at the Pentagon. The conversation would be risky, but she needed to warn him about the conspiracy and ensure he wasn't walking into a trap. Admiral Morrison answered after 2 rings. "This is Morrison. Dad, it's Sarah. I'm using an unsecured line, so I can't say much. There's a situation developing that could affect you directly. Can you meet me tonight? Somewhere private." The pause that followed felt like an eternity. Finally, her father's voice returned, careful and measured. "Sarah, what kind of situation? Are you in danger? I can't discuss details over this line. Please, Dad, just trust me. This is bigger than anything we've dealt with before, and I need your help." "All right, the usual place at 2,100 hours. Come alone and make sure you're not followed." The line went dead, leaving Sarah with a mixture of relief and anxiety. Her father had agreed to meet, but his cautious tone suggested he might already suspect something was wrong. Whether that would help or complicate her situation remained to be seen. As evening approached, Sarah prepared for what might be the most important meeting of her life. The evidence she carried could expose corruption reaching the highest levels of military command, but it also painted a target on her back. Tonight, she would learn whether her father could be trusted with the truth, and whether together they could find a way to stop the conspiracy before more people disappeared. The stakes couldn't be higher, and failure would likely mean death not just for herself, but for anyone who tried to help her. Yet Sarah knew she had no choice but to move forward. Her oath as a military officer demanded nothing less than complete dedication to protecting her country, even if that meant sacrificing everything she held dear. Admiral David Morrison sat in his Pentagon office, staring at classified reports that suddenly seemed meaningless compared to his daughter's cryptic phone call. 27 years of military service had taught him to read between the lines, and Sarah's carefully chosen words painted a picture that terrified him. His daughter was in danger, and the threat came from within their own ranks. The secure phone on his desk buzzed with an incoming call from General Patricia Hayes, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Morrison had worked with Hayes for over a decade, and her judgment had always been impeccable. If anyone could provide insight into Sarah's situation, it would be her. "David, we need to talk. Are you free for a private meeting?" Hayes's voice carried an urgency that immediately put Morrison on alert. "Of course, General. My office or yours?" "Neither. I'll send you coordinates. Come alone, and make sure you're not followed. This concerns Operation Nightfall." Morrison's blood ran cold. Operation Nightfall was a classified designation he had seen referenced in intelligence briefings, but the details had been restricted to a small circle of senior officers. If Hayes was connecting it to Sarah's situation, the implications were staggering. 30 minutes later, Morrison found himself in an abandoned warehouse in Virginia, face-to-face with General Hayes and 2 other senior officers he recognized but didn't know well. The setting was deliberately chosen to avoid electronic surveillance, and the presence of multiple high-ranking officials suggested a crisis of unprecedented scope. "David, what I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room," Hayes began, her expression grave. 3 weeks ago, we discovered evidence of systematic theft and corruption involving multiple military installations. The operation appears to be coordinated by individuals with access to the highest levels of classification. Colonel Patricia Vance, the Pentagon's Inspector General, stepped forward with a tablet displaying financial records and shipping manifests. The investigation began when irregularities were detected in weapons inventory reports from Fort Meade, where your daughter is stationed. Someone has been systematically removing advanced military equipment and covering their tracks with falsified documentation. Morrison studied the data, his analytical mind immediately recognizing the sophisticated nature of the operation. How much equipment are we talking about? Conservative estimates put the value at over $200 million in weapons, technology, and supplies, replied Brigadier General Marcus Thompson, the Defense Intelligence Agency director. But the real concern isn't the theft itself. Intelligence suggests this equipment is being sold to foreign actors and terrorist organizations. The revelation hit Morrison like a physical blow. Military equipment in the hands of hostile forces could result in countless American casualties and compromise national security for years to come. The people responsible weren't just thieves, they were traitors of the highest order. What does this have to do with Sarah? Morrison asked, though he already suspected the answer would devastate him. Hayes exchanged glances with the other officers before responding. Lieutenant Commander Chun has been conducting an unauthorized investigation into Operation Nightfall. Her activities have been detected by the individuals responsible for the thefts. We believe she's in immediate danger. Morrison felt the room spinning around him. His daughter, driven by the same sense of duty he had instilled in her, had stumbled into a conspiracy that could get her killed. The irony was bitter. Sarah's dedication to military values had made her a target of those who had abandoned those same principles. How do you know about Sarah's investigation? Morrison demanded. Colonel Vance activated her tablet and displayed communication intercepts. The conspiracy includes personnel from multiple intelligence agencies. They've been monitoring anyone who might pose a threat to their operation. Your daughter's name appeared on their watch list 5 days ago. The implications were clear and terrifying. Sarah wasn't just in danger from external threats. She was being hunted by people with access to the most advanced surveillance and elimination capabilities in the world. Every resource she might normally turn to for protection could potentially be compromised. We need to extract her immediately, Morrison said, his paternal instincts overriding his military training. It's not that simple, Thompson interjected. The conspiracy includes personnel from multiple branches and agencies. We don't know who can be trusted, and moving too quickly could expose our investigation while putting your daughter at greater risk. General Hayes pulled up a map displaying locations across 3 continents. The operation extends far beyond simple theft. Intelligence indicates they're selling advanced weapons to groups in Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. Some of these organizations have direct ties to terrorist networks that have targeted American interests. Morrison stared at the map, recognizing the strategic implications. If hostile forces gained access to advanced American military technology, the balance of power in multiple regions could shift dramatically. The conspiracy wasn't just about money. It was about reshaping global security in ways that would benefit America's enemies. Who's leading the conspiracy? Morrison asked. That's what we're trying to determine, Hayes replied. The operational security is extremely sophisticated, suggesting military or intelligence training at the highest levels. Whoever is running this has anticipated our investigation and taken steps to insulate themselves from detection. Colonel Vance displayed an organizational chart showing suspected connections between various military personnel. We've identified approximately 30 individuals across different bases and agencies who appear to be involved. However, the leadership structure remains hidden. Someone with significant authority is coordinating these activities, but we haven't been able to identify them. Morrison studied the chart, noting several names he recognized from previous assignments. The betrayal felt personal. These were people he had worked with, trusted, and considered colleagues. The realization that some of them might be willing to kill his daughter to protect their operation filled him with rage and determination. What about the missing analyst's agent Walsh mentioned? Morrison asked, surprising the group with his knowledge of classified information. Thompson's expression darkened. 3 intelligence analysts from different installations have disappeared in the past 2 weeks. All were investigating irregularities related to Operation Nightfall. Their disappearances were staged to look like personal crises or voluntary departures, but we believe they were eliminated to prevent exposure. The casual mention of murder sent chills down Morrison's spine. These weren't criminals operating on the margins of society. They were military personnel who had sworn oaths to protect and defend their country. The fact that they were willing to kill fellow service members demonstrated the depth of their corruption and the stakes involved in stopping them. Sarah contacted me for a meeting tonight, Morrison revealed. She said she couldn't discuss details over the phone, but she needs my help with something bigger than anything we've dealt with before. Hayes leaned forward intently. David, that meeting could be a trap. If the conspiracy suspects are involved, they might use Sarah to draw you into the open. Morrison had considered the same possibility, but his parental instincts overrode his caution. Sarah's smart enough to detect surveillance and sophisticated enough to arrange secure communication if she was working with hostiles. The call felt genuine, and she's my daughter. I won't abandon her when she needs help. Then, we'll provide backup, Thompson decided. Discreet surveillance to ensure your safety and hers. If this is legitimate, we might gain valuable intelligence. If it's a trap, we'll be ready to respond. Colonel Vance consulted her tablet and displayed a detailed map of the meeting location. The site she chose is defensible, but has multiple escape routes. It shows tactical thinking consistent with someone trying to avoid surveillance while maintaining security. That supports the theory that she's acting independently. Morrison felt a mixture of pride and fear as he realized his daughter was applying skills he had taught her years earlier. Sarah had always been exceptional at strategic thinking and operational planning, but those abilities would only help if she truly understood the scope of the threat she faced. There's something else you need to know, Hayes said quietly. We have reason to believe the conspiracy includes someone from the Pentagon senior leadership. The operational coordination and access to classified information suggests involvement at the highest levels of command. The words hit Morrison like a thunderbolt. If someone from the Pentagon senior leadership was involved, it meant the conspiracy had access to the most sensitive military secrets and the authority to cover up their activities almost indefinitely. It also meant that trusting the wrong person could be fatal for everyone involved in the investigation. Do you have suspects? Morrison asked. Several, but no concrete evidence, Thompson admitted. The investigation is complicated by the fact that anyone with sufficient access to coordinate this operation also has the authority to shut down investigations and reassign personnel. We're essentially investigating our own command structure while operating under their oversight. Morrison understood the impossible position they faced. Traditional military hierarchy and chain of command, which normally provided structure and accountability, had been corrupted and weaponized against them. Fighting back required operating outside normal channels while avoiding detection by people who controlled those very channels. What about bringing in external oversight? Morrison suggested congressional intelligence committees or Department of Justice investigators. Hayes shook her head grimly. We consider that option, but the conspiracy's reach extends beyond the military. Intelligence indicates coordination with defense contractors and possibly foreign intelligence services. Congressional involvement could tip off the conspirators and result in the elimination of key witnesses. The scope of the corruption was overwhelming. What had started as investigation into missing equipment had revealed a web of treason, murder, and international conspiracy that threatened to undermine American security for years to come. Morrison realized that stopping it would require extraordinary measures and personal sacrifices from everyone involved. So what's our plan? Morrison asked. Colonel Vance activated a secure communication device and began coordinating surveillance assets. We monitor your meeting with Sarah tonight, gathering intelligence while ensuring both your safety. Meanwhile, we continue investigating the conspiracy from within, using our positions to gather evidence while maintaining operational security. Thompson added, the goal is to identify the leadership structure and gather enough evidence to expose the entire operation simultaneously. If we move too early, the leaders will escape and the conspiracy will simply relocate and continue operating. Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. His daughter's life hung in the balance, along with national security and the lives of countless other service members who had stumbled too close to the truth. The decisions made in the coming hours would determine whether justice prevailed or whether corruption would continue to spread through the military like cancer. One more thing, Hayes said as the meeting concluded. If Sarah has gathered evidence related to Operation Nightfall, that information could be the key to exposing the entire conspiracy. Protect her, but also recognize that what she knows might be the only chance we have to stop this before it's too late. As Morrison prepared to leave for his meeting with Sarah, he reflected on the cruel irony of the situation. His entire career had been dedicated to protecting his country from external threats, but now the greatest danger came from within. The oath he had sworn to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, had taken on new meaning. Tonight, he would discover whether his daughter had found the key to saving their country, or whether they had both become targets in a war they didn't fully understand. The drive to the meeting location gave Morrison time to prepare mentally for whatever Sarah might reveal. He had faced combat situations, diplomatic crises, and strategic challenges throughout his career, but nothing had prepared him for the possibility of losing his daughter to enemies wearing American uniforms. As the sun set over Washington, Morrison realized that the next few hours would test everything he believed about duty, honor, and family in ways he had never imagined possible. The abandoned boat dock stretched into the Potomac River like a forgotten finger pointing toward the darkness. Sarah Chun arrived 15 minutes early, using the time to scan the surrounding area for signs of surveillance or potential threats. The location held special meaning for both her and her father. They had fished here during her childhood, sharing quiet conversations about life, duty, and the price of service to country. Tonight, those memories felt like echoes from another lifetime. Sarah positioned herself with clear sight lines in multiple directions while maintaining access to escape routes through the wooded area behind the dock. Her hand rested on the encrypted drive in her jacket pocket, containing evidence that could either save her country or get her killed in the next hour. Admiral Morrison's sedan appeared precisely at 9 o'clock, headlights cutting through the evening mist as he navigated the gravel road leading to the water. Sarah watched her father exit the vehicle and approach with a measured stride that had become second nature after decades of military service. Even in civilian clothes, he carried himself with an authority that commanded respect from subordinates and adversaries alike. "Sarah," he called softly as he approached the dock. "Dad." She emerged from the shadows, noting how his eyes immediately began scanning their surroundings with the same tactical awareness she had developed. "Thank you for coming." Morrison embraced his daughter, feeling the tension in her muscles and the way her eyes never stopped moving. "What's happening, sweetheart? Your message suggested you were in serious danger." Sarah pulled back and studied her father's face, searching for any sign that he might already know about her investigation or the threats she faced. What she saw was genuine concern mixed with the analytical intensity that had made him one of the military's most effective intelligence officers. "Dad, what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but I need you to listen without interrupting. Lives depend on your reaction to this information, including my own." Morrison nodded, his expression becoming grave as he recognized the formal tone his daughter used when discussing classified matters. "I'm listening." Sarah removed the encrypted drive from her pocket and held it between them. "For the past 2 months, I've been investigating irregularities in military supply chains and personnel transfers. What started as routine analysis uncovered evidence of systematic theft, corruption, and treason at levels that reach into the highest ranks of military command." The words hung in the air between them like an unexploded bomb. Morrison felt his world shifting as implications cascaded through his mind. If Sarah was correct, it meant that people he worked with daily, trusted implicitly, and considered patriots were actually enemies of the state. "The operation is called Nightfall," Sarah continued, watching her father's reaction carefully. "Over the past 2 years, equipment worth hundreds of millions of dollars has been systematically stolen from military installations and sold to foreign buyers. Advanced weapons, communication systems, and classified technology are being transferred to hostile nations and terrorist organizations." Morrison's training kicked in, suppressing emotional reactions in favor of analytical thinking. "What kind of evidence do you have?" Sarah activated a tablet, and displayed shipping manifests, financial records, and communication intercepts. Falsified transfer orders, altered inventory records, and communication between conspirators discussing sales to buyers in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia. The organization is sophisticated enough to operate across multiple commands while maintaining compartmentalized security. Morrison studied the data. His experienced eye immediately recognizing the professional nature of the conspiracy. The documents were authentic, the patterns were clear, and the implications were terrifying. His daughter had uncovered a threat to national security that dwarfed anything he had encountered in his career. Sarah, this information is incredibly dangerous. Have you shared it with anyone else? Agent Rebecca Walsh at DIA has been helping me gather external intelligence, but she warned me that analysts from 3 different bases have disappeared after investigating similar irregularities. Dad, I think they're killing anyone who gets too close to the truth. The confirmation of Morrison's worst fears sent ice through his veins. His daughter wasn't just in danger from abstract threats. She was being hunted by people with the resources and ruthlessness to eliminate obstacles to their operation. Every moment she remained exposed increased the likelihood of her disappearance or death. There's more, Sarah said, advancing to another screen on her tablet. The financial trail suggests coordination with defense contractors and possible involvement of foreign intelligence services. This isn't just theft. It's systematic undermining of American military capabilities on behalf of hostile nations. Morrison absorbed the information while simultaneously considering tactical options. His daughter had stumbled into a conspiracy that threatened the foundations of national security, and her life now depended on making the right decisions in the next few minutes. Sarah, I need to tell you something that might affect how we proceed, Morrison said carefully. Earlier today, I was contacted by General Hayes and other senior officials. They're aware of Operation Nightfall and have been conducting their own investigation. You're not alone in this fight. Relief flooded Sarah's face before being replaced by suspicion. How do they know about my investigation? I've been careful to avoid detection through official channels. Morrison explained his meeting with Hayes, Thompson, and Vance, watching as Sarah processed the implications. The news that senior Pentagon officials were investigating the same conspiracy provided both hope and additional concerns about operational security and trust. If they know about my investigation, then the conspirators probably know too, Sarah concluded. That would explain why Colonel Reeves suspended my access to classified systems today. He's either part of the conspiracy or acting on orders from someone who is. The mention of Reeves sent alarm bells ringing in Morrison's mind. He had worked with the colonel on several joint intelligence projects and always found him to be professional and competent. The possibility that Reeves was corrupt forced Morrison to reconsider his assessment of everyone in Sarah's chain of command. We need to get you somewhere safe while the investigation continues, Morrison said. General Hayes offered protection and support for gathering additional evidence. Sarah shook her head firmly. Dad, running away won't stop them. They'll continue stealing weapons, selling them to terrorists, and killing anyone who threatens their operation. The evidence I have is critical, but it's not complete. We need more information to identify the leadership and expose the entire network. Morrison felt torn between his paternal instincts to protect his daughter and his professional understanding that she was correct. The conspiracy would continue operating regardless of what happened to Sarah individually, and stopping it required aggressive action rather than defensive measures. What kind of additional evidence do you need? Morrison asked. Sarah consulted her tablet and displayed a list of missing information. Financial records showing the ultimate destination of stolen funds, communication intercepts identifying the leadership hierarchy, and documentation proving coordination with foreign intelligence services. Most importantly, we need to identify who inside the Pentagon is coordinating the operation. Morrison realized that gathering such evidence would require resources and access that Sarah couldn't obtain independently. It would also require taking enormous risks that could expose the investigation and result in the elimination of everyone involved. General Hayes mentioned that the conspiracy might include someone from the Pentagon's senior leadership, Morrison revealed. They suspect coordination at the highest levels but haven't identified specific individuals. The news confirmed Sarah's worst suspicions about the scope of the conspiracy. If senior Pentagon officials were involved, it meant the corruption had infected the very institutions responsible for national defense. It also meant that any investigation would have to operate outside normal channels while avoiding detection by people who control those channels. "Dad, I think I know how to identify the Pentagon connection," Sarah said, activating another screen on her tablet. The operational coordination requires real-time communication between the Pentagon and field operatives. If we can monitor communication patterns and match them with the timing of known theft operations, we might be able to identify who's sending the orders. Morrison considered the proposal, recognizing both its potential and its dangers. Monitoring Pentagon communications would require access to the most sensitive intelligence systems in the government, and getting caught would result in immediate arrest for treason. However, it might also provide the evidence needed to expose the entire conspiracy. That kind of surveillance would require resources I don't have access to, Morrison admitted. It would also put anyone involved at enormous risk if discovered. Sarah met her father's eyes with a determination he recognized from her childhood. "Dad, American military technology is being sold to people who want to kill American soldiers. Every day, this conspiracy continues. More weapons fall into the hands of our enemies. We can't let fear stop us from doing what's necessary." Morrison felt pride and terror in equal measure as he recognized the courage and dedication that had always defined his daughter. She was willing to sacrifice everything to protect her country, just as he had taught her. However, he also understood that her commitment might get her killed by people who had abandoned the values she embodied. "All right," Morrison decided, "but we do this with backup and support from General Hayes' team. No unnecessary risks. And we have extraction plans ready if the situation becomes too dangerous." Sarah nodded gratefully, understanding that her father's support meant access to resources and expertise she couldn't obtain independently. Together, they might be able to gather the evidence needed to expose the conspiracy while surviving the inevitable retaliation. "There's something else," Sarah added. Agent Walsh indicated that the conspiracy extends beyond theft and includes planned attacks on American military installations overseas. If we're right about foreign intelligence coordination, this could be preparation for a larger operation designed to compromise American military capabilities globally. The implications hit Morrison like a physical blow. The conspiracy wasn't just about money or corruption. It was about systematically undermining American military effectiveness in preparation for conflicts that could cost thousands of American lives. The stakes couldn't be higher, and failure would have consequences far beyond their personal safety. "We need to move quickly," Morrison concluded. "If they're planning attacks, every day we delay gives them more time to prepare and more opportunities to eliminate witnesses." Sarah stored her tablet and prepared to leave, but Morrison caught her arm gently. "Sarah, I want you to understand something. What we're about to do goes beyond normal duty or military obligation. We're fighting for the soul of our military and our country. The people we're up against have abandoned honor, integrity, and loyalty in favor of greed and treason. They won't hesitate to kill us to protect their operation." Sarah squeezed her father's hand, feeling the same mixture of love and determination that had defined their relationship since childhood. "Dad, you taught me that some things are worth dying for. Protecting our country from enemies, foreign and domestic, is one of them. I'm scared, but I'm not backing down." As they prepared to leave the docks separately, both father and daughter understood that their lives would never be the same. They were embarking on a mission that would either expose one of the largest conspiracies in military history or result in their deaths at the hands of traitors wearing American uniforms. Either way, they would face it together, united by love, duty, and an unshakable commitment to the principles that had guided their lives. The drive back to Washington took them through the darkness of rural Virginia. But both Morrison and Sarah knew they were heading toward an even deeper darkness where the line between friend and enemy had been erased by corruption and betrayal. Tomorrow would bring new dangers and difficult choices, but tonight had strengthened their resolve to fight for truth regardless of the personal cost. The Pentagon's corridors hummed with unusual activity at 6 in the morning as Admiral Morrison made his way to General Hayes' office. Overnight, the investigation into Operation Nightfall had taken a dramatic turn when Sarah's analysis revealed communication patterns that pointed directly to a coordinated attack plan for the following week. What had begun as an investigation into theft had become a race against time to prevent a catastrophic assault on American military installations worldwide. General Hayes was already in her office, surrounded by intelligence analysts and senior officers who had been working through the night. The walls displayed maps, communication intercepts, and financial data that painted a picture of conspiracy more extensive and dangerous than anyone had initially suspected. "David, thank God you're here," Hayes said, looking up from a classified report. "Sarah's intelligence has broken the case wide open, but what we've learned is terrifying." Morrison approached the central display, where Colonel Vance was briefing the assembled group on the latest developments. The evidence Sarah had provided, combined with intelligence gathered by Hayes' team, revealed a conspiracy that extended far beyond simple theft and corruption. "The communication analysis your daughter suggested led us to identify the Pentagon connection," Vance explained, pointing to intercepts displayed on the main screen. "General Marcus Webb, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, has been coordinating with field operatives using encrypted communications that match the timing of every major theft operation." The revelation hit Morrison like a physical blow. General Webb was a decorated veteran with access to the most sensitive operational plans in the American military. If he was coordinating the conspiracy, it meant the enemy had real-time access to classified information about troop movements, supply operations, and strategic planning. "How long has Webb been involved?" Morrison asked. Brigadier General Thompson consulted his tablet and displayed a timeline of suspicious activities. "Based on communication patterns and operational correlation, we believe he's been coordinating the conspiracy for at least 18 months. His position gives him perfect access to authorize transfers, alter records, and cover up missing equipment." Hayes activated another screen showing planned military operations across multiple theaters. Here's where it gets worse. The stolen equipment includes advanced anti-aircraft systems, encrypted communication devices, and intelligence-gathering technology. Based on deployment patterns and timing, we believe Webb has been providing information to help hostile forces prepare for attacks on our overseas installations. Morrison studied the data, his experienced mind immediately recognizing the strategic implications. Webb's access to operational plans meant that every American military installation worldwide was potentially compromised. Enemy forces could have detailed information about defensive capabilities, supply schedules, and personnel rotations. "What kind of attacks are we talking about?" Morrison demanded. Colonel Vance displayed satellite imagery and intelligence reports from multiple locations. "Coordinated strikes against American bases in Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. The pattern suggests simultaneous attacks designed to overwhelm our defensive capabilities and capture or destroy critical equipment before reinforcements can arrive." The scope of the planned assault was staggering. Morrison realized they weren't just dealing with theft or corruption. They were facing a coordinated effort to systematically destroy American military capabilities in multiple regions simultaneously. If successful, such attacks would cripple American strategic projection and embolden hostile nations worldwide. "When?" Morrison asked. "Intelligence indicates the attacks are scheduled for 72 hours from now," Thompson replied grimly. "The timing coincides with a scheduled rotation of personnel that Webb authorized, which will leave the targeted bases operating with skeleton crews." Morrison felt time slipping away as he processed the implications. 3 days to prevent a disaster that could reshape global security and cost hundreds of American lives. 3 days to expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of military command while avoiding detection by the very people who controlled their investigation. "Where is Webb now?" Morrison asked. Hayes consulted her secure communication device. "In meetings with the Joint Chiefs, discussing the very personnel rotations that will facilitate the attacks." He's literally using his position to help plan the destruction of American military installations while sitting in classified briefings. The audacity and treachery were beyond anything Morrison had encountered in his career. Webb wasn't just stealing equipment or accepting bribes. He was actively working to get American soldiers killed while maintaining his position as a trusted senior officer. "We need to arrest him immediately," Morrison said. "It's not that simple," Vance replied. Webb's arrest would alert the entire conspiracy network and likely trigger the attacks prematurely. "We need to gather additional evidence, identify all conspirators, and coordinate with overseas commanders before moving against him." Thompson displayed a map showing the locations of suspected conspiracy members worldwide. "Our analysis indicates at least 47 military personnel across 6 different countries are involved in various aspects of the operation. Arresting Webb without simultaneously neutralizing the entire network would allow most of them to escape." Morrison understood the tactical challenge, but felt frustrated by the complexity of stopping an attack when time was running out. Every hour they spent gathering evidence was an hour closer to the planned assault, and every additional delay increased the risk that the conspiracy would detect their investigation. "What about warning the targeted installations?" Morrison suggested. Hayes shook her head. "Standard security alerts would tip off the conspirators and potentially accelerate their timeline. We need to find a way to enhance defensive capabilities without revealing our knowledge of the planned attacks." Colonel Vance activated another display showing communication intercepts from the previous 24 hours. "There's more. Intelligence indicates the conspiracy has been coordinating with foreign intelligence services, particularly Russian and Chinese operatives. This isn't just about theft. It's about systematically weakening American military capabilities on behalf of hostile nations." Morrison realized they were facing something far worse than corruption or treason by individuals. The conspiracy represented a coordinated effort by enemy nations to undermine American security from within, using trusted military officers as weapons against their own country. "How extensive is the foreign involvement?" Morrison asked. Thompson displayed financial records and communication logs. "Extensive. Russian intelligence has been providing technical support and coordination, while Chinese operatives have been facilitating the sale of stolen technology. The conspiracy is essentially a joint operation between hostile foreign powers and corrupted American military personnel." The revelation transformed Morrison's understanding of the threat they faced. This wasn't just about catching criminals or preventing attacks. It was about stopping an act of war being conducted from within the Pentagon itself. The implications for national security were catastrophic, and failure would give enemy nations unprecedented insight into American military capabilities. "What's our plan?" Morrison asked. Hayes consulted with her team before responding. "We need to work on multiple fronts simultaneously. First, we continue gathering evidence to ensure we can prosecute all conspirators. Second, we discreetly enhance security at the targeted installations without revealing our knowledge of planned attacks. Third, we prepare to arrest the entire conspiracy network simultaneously." Vance added, "Your daughter has been invaluable in this investigation, but her continued exposure puts her at enormous risk. Webb's people are actively hunting for the source of intelligence leaks, and they've already eliminated other analysts who got too close to the truth." Morrison felt the familiar tension between his duty as an officer and his love as a father. Sarah's intelligence had been critical to uncovering the conspiracy, but continuing to use her as a resource might result in her death. However, stopping the investigation might result in hundreds of American casualties and long-term damage to national security. "Sarah wants to continue gathering intelligence," Morrison said. "She believes she can identify additional conspiracy members and gather evidence of foreign coordination. I support her decision, but only with full backup and extraction capabilities." Thompson nodded approvingly. "We've prepared a safe house and communication protocols that will allow her to continue working while maintaining security. Additionally, we're providing surveillance and quick response teams to intervene if she's detected." Hayes activated a secure communication system and began coordinating with overseas commanders. "I'm initiating Operation Guardian Shield. which will enhance security at potential targets while maintaining plausible explanations for the increased defensive posture. The base commanders won't know about the specific threat, but they'll be better prepared to respond to attacks. Morrison watched the coordination efforts with professional admiration and personal anxiety. The scale of the operation was unprecedented, requiring perfect timing and flawless execution to prevent disaster while maintaining operational security. The margin for error was essentially zero, and failure would have consequences far beyond their personal safety. "David, there's something else you need to know," Hayes said quietly. "Intelligence indicates that if the planned attacks are successful, the conspiracy intends to blame the security failures on specific officers, including you. Webb has been preparing evidence to suggest that you and Sarah are the actual conspirators, using your positions to cover up your own crimes." The news hit Morrison like ice water. The conspiracy wasn't just planning to attack American installations. They intended to frame him and his daughter as traitors, destroying their reputations while eliminating them as witnesses. The sophistication and malicious planning demonstrated the conspiracy's understanding of how to manipulate military justice and public opinion. "How do we counter that?" Morrison asked. Vance displayed a legal strategy prepared by military prosecutors. "We document everything, maintain perfect operational security, and ensure that our evidence gathering is beyond reproach. When we move against the conspiracy, we need overwhelming proof that will withstand scrutiny and prevent any attempts to shift blame." Morrison understood that they were fighting on multiple fronts, against the conspiracy, against time, against foreign intelligence services, and against the potential manipulation of justice itself. Victory would require perfect execution of an incredibly complex plan, while their enemies possessed every advantage except the truth. As the briefing concluded, Morrison prepared to contact Sarah and coordinate the next phase of their investigation. Time was running out. American lives hung in the balance, and the future of national security depended on their ability to outmaneuver enemies who had infiltrated the highest levels of military command. The irony wasn't lost on Morrison that the greatest threat to American security was coming from within the Pentagon itself, coordinated by officers who had sworn the same oaths he and Sarah had taken. The corruption of those oaths represented a betrayal that went beyond mere criminality. It was an attack on the fundamental values that defined military service. Walking through the Pentagon corridors toward his next meeting, Morrison realized that the next 48 hours would determine whether justice prevailed or whether the conspiracy succeeded in destroying American military capabilities while framing patriotic officers as traitors. The stakes couldn't be higher, and failure wasn't an option when his daughter's life and his country's security hung in the balance. The battle for the Pentagon had begun, and it would be fought not with weapons, but with intelligence, courage, and an unwavering commitment to the truth in the face of overwhelming corruption. Morrison had spent his career preparing for external threats, but now he faced the most dangerous enemy of all, one that wore American uniforms and possessed American secrets while serving foreign masters. The secure operations center beneath the Pentagon buzzed with controlled chaos as the largest counterintelligence operation in military history reached its climax. Admiral Morrison stood before banks of monitors displaying real-time intelligence from 6 continents, watching as coordinated arrests began simultaneously across multiple time zones. After 48 hours of intense preparation, Operation Guardian Strike was finally underway. General Hayes coordinated the global operation from the Central Command position, her calm voice directing assets across the world as they moved against conspiracy members who had betrayed their oaths for foreign money and ideological corruption. The precision required was extraordinary. Too early, and conspirators would escape. Too late, and the planned attacks on American installations would proceed. Strike Team Alpha reports General Webb in custody at 0647 hours, Colonel Vance announced from her communication station. No resistance, complete surprise achieved. Morrison felt a mixture of satisfaction and disgust as he watched Webb being led away in handcuffs on the secure video feed. The general who had betrayed his country while sitting in the most sensitive military meetings was finally facing justice, but the damage he had caused would take years to fully assess. Sarah Chun emerged from the intelligence analysis section, exhaustion evident in her features after 72 straight hours of gathering evidence and coordinating with overseas assets. Her work had been instrumental in identifying the final pieces of the conspiracy puzzle, including the specific timing and targets of the planned attacks. Dad, the financial tracking teams have confirmed the money trail leads directly to Russian intelligence services, Sarah reported, handing him a tablet displaying banking records and communication intercepts. Over $200 million transferred to American conspirators over an 18-month period, with additional payments promised for successful completion of the attacks. Morrison studied the evidence, marveling at his daughter's analytical skills while feeling proud of her dedication to uncovering the truth. The financial documentation provided irrefutable proof that the conspiracy was a coordinated attack by foreign powers using corrupted American military personnel as weapons against their own country. Strike Team Charlie confirms arrests of Colonel Reeves and associated personnel at Fort Meade, Thompson announced from his coordination position. Intelligence materials secured. No evidence of document destruction. Sarah felt a complex mix of vindication and sadness as she learned about Reeves's arrest. The man she had worked with for months, who had seemed like a dedicated professional, had been planning her elimination while maintaining the facade of military duty. The betrayal was personal, but it also demonstrated how deeply the corruption had penetrated military institutions. Global Situation Report. Hayes requested. Vance consulted multiple communication streams before responding. 43 arrests completed across 6 countries. 2 suspects attempted to flee, but were intercepted at international borders. 3 individuals remain at large, but are isolated from operational capabilities. Most importantly, all planned attacks have been prevented. Morrison felt relief flooding through him as he realized they had succeeded in preventing the catastrophic assault on American military installations. Hundreds of American lives had been saved, and the conspiracy's plan to cripple American strategic capabilities had been thwarted through coordinated international effort. What about the foreign intelligence connections? Sarah asked. Thompson displayed diplomatic communications on the main screen. Russian and Chinese intelligence officers are being expelled from multiple countries based on evidence gathered during our investigation. Additionally, formal diplomatic protests are being filed regarding their coordination of attacks on American military personnel. Hayes activated a secure communication line to brief the Secretary of Defense and other cabinet officials on the operation's success. The scale of the conspiracy and the involvement of foreign intelligence services would require diplomatic responses at the highest levels of government, potentially affecting international relations for years to come. Personal security status? Morrison inquired, thinking about the threats his daughter had faced throughout the investigation. Colonel Vance consulted her security briefings. All known threats against Lieutenant Commander Chun have been neutralized through arrests or surveillance. However, we recommend continued protective protocols until we're certain no sleeper assets remain active. Sarah appreciated the continued security measures, but felt eager to return to normal military duties. The investigation had consumed months of her life and subjected her to dangers she had never imagined, but it had also demonstrated the critical importance of intelligence analysis in protecting national security. Dad, there's something else, Sarah said, pulling her father aside for a private conversation. During the final evidence gathering, I discovered that the conspiracy was planning to expand beyond theft and attacks. They were developing plans to infiltrate additional military installations and government agencies, essentially creating a permanent intelligence network for hostile foreign powers. Morrison felt chills as he realized how close they had come to a complete compromise of American security infrastructure. The conspiracy's long-term goals went far beyond individual attacks or theft. They were attempting to systematically undermine American military capabilities while providing ongoing intelligence to enemy nations. How extensive were their expansion plans? Morrison asked. Sarah activated her tablet and displayed organizational charts and recruitment plans. They identified over 200 potential recruits across multiple agencies and military branches. The selection criteria focused on personnel with financial problems, ideological grievances, or personal vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Morrison studied the data with professional interest and personal horror. The conspiracy had been operating like a foreign intelligence service within American military institutions, using sophisticated recruitment and operational techniques to build a network of traitors. If successful, such an operation could have provided hostile nations with unprecedented access to American secrets. Have all the potential recruits been identified and investigated? Morrison asked. General Hayes has initiated background investigations for everyone on the lists, Sarah replied. Most appear to be unwitting targets who never actually engaged with conspiracy recruiters, but several cases require additional scrutiny. Hayes approached their conversation, having concluded her briefings with senior government officials. David, Sarah, I wanted to personally thank you both for your courage and dedication throughout this investigation. Your work has literally saved lives and protected national security in ways that may never be fully understood by the public. Morrison felt pride in his daughter's accomplishments, but also concern about the personal costs of her involvement in such a dangerous investigation. General, what's the long-term impact assessment for the conspiracy's activities? Hayes consulted a comprehensive report prepared by intelligence analysts. Catastrophic if we hadn't stopped them. The planned attacks would have destroyed or compromised critical military installations, while the intelligence network would have provided ongoing access to our most sensitive secrets. Conservative estimates suggest the conspiracy could have set back American military capabilities by a decade or more. Sarah felt the weight of those words as she realized how close their country had come to a security disaster of unprecedented proportions. The investigation had seemed overwhelming at times, but the alternative, allowing the conspiracy to succeed, would have been unthinkable. What happens to the evidence and the conspirators? Sarah asked. Colonel Vance joined the conversation with legal briefings prepared by military prosecutors. Military tribunals will handle the cases involving active duty personnel, while civilian courts will prosecute the contractors and foreign nationals involved. The evidence gathered during our investigation is comprehensive enough to ensure conviction in virtually every case. Morrison felt satisfaction knowing that justice would be served, but he also understood that the trials would likely reveal additional details about the conspiracy's operations and foreign connections. The legal proceedings would take years to complete and might expose other security vulnerabilities that needed to be addressed. Personal career implications? Morrison asked, thinking about both his and Sarah's futures in military service. Hayes smiled for the first time in days. David, you and Sarah have distinguished yourselves as two of the finest officers in military service. Your dedication to uncovering the truth, regardless of personal danger, exemplifies everything we value in military leadership. Both of you can expect career advancement and recognition for your service. Sarah felt relief that their investigation wouldn't result in career penalties, but she also realized that her experience had changed her perspective on military service. The discovery that trusted colleagues could be traitors had shaken her faith in institutions, while the courage of officers like General Hayes had reinforced her belief in military values. As the operation entered its final phase, with international coordination continuing to roll up remaining conspiracy elements worldwide, Morrison and Sarah found themselves reflecting on the lessons learned from their ordeal. The investigation had tested their relationship, challenged their beliefs about military service, and forced them to confront enemies they had never imagined. Dad, do you think we can prevent something like this from happening again? Sarah asked. Morrison considered the question carefully before responding. Sarah, corruption and betrayal are eternal threats that require constant vigilance. What we've learned is that the institutions we serve are only as strong as the people within them, and maintaining integrity requires everyone to take personal responsibility for upholding our values. Hayes approached with final briefings as the operation concluded successfully. The immediate crisis is over, but this investigation has revealed systemic vulnerabilities that will require long-term attention. We'll be implementing new security protocols, enhanced background investigations, and improved oversight mechanisms to prevent future infiltration. Sarah understood that their work had implications far beyond stopping a single conspiracy. The investigation had exposed weaknesses in military security systems and highlighted the need for ongoing vigilance against internal threats. The lessons learned would influence military policy for years to come. 6 months later, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun stood in the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes, receiving the Distinguished Service Medal for her role in exposing Operation Nightfall. Admiral Morrison watched with pride as his daughter was recognized for courage that had saved American lives and protected national security. The conspiracy trials had resulted in convictions for all major participants, with sentences ranging from decades in prison to life imprisonment for the most serious cases involving treason and murder. General Webb faced execution for his role in coordinating attacks that would have killed American soldiers, while foreign intelligence officers involved in the operation had been exchanged in prisoner swaps or expelled from their host countries. The investigation had also led to comprehensive reforms in military security procedures, financial oversight, and personnel monitoring systems designed to detect and prevent future infiltration attempts. The lessons learned from Operation Nightfall became required study for all military intelligence personnel, ensuring that future generations would be better prepared to recognize and counter internal threats. As Sarah received her medal, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. What began as routine analysis of shipping irregularities had evolved into the most important mission of her career, testing her skills, courage, and dedication in ways she had never imagined. The experience had been terrifying, but it had also demonstrated the critical importance of intelligence work in protecting American security. Admiral Morrison felt immense pride watching his daughter being honored for her service, but he also understood that their experience had changed them both. They had seen how corruption could infect military institutions and how foreign enemies could exploit American values for malicious purposes. However, they had also witnessed the courage and dedication of patriots who were willing to risk everything to protect their country. The ceremony concluded with remarks from the Secretary of Defense, who praised all personnel involved in Operation Guardian Strike, while emphasizing the ongoing need for vigilance against internal threats. The investigation had been successful, but the war against corruption and foreign infiltration would continue as long as America had enemies who sought to undermine its strength from within. Walking out of the Pentagon together, father and daughter understood that their bond had been strengthened by shared danger and mutual commitment to serving something greater than themselves. They had faced the ultimate test of military service, confronting enemies within their own ranks, and emerged with their integrity intact and their dedication to country stronger than ever. The conspiracy had been defeated, justice had been served, and American security had been protected through the courage of those willing to risk everything for truth. The price had been high, but the cost of failure would have been immeasurable, making their sacrifice worthwhile for the preservation of the values that defined their service and their nation.